Hello, my juicy peaches. Welcome back to my channel. It's your priestess Peaches here, supporting you to live your juiciest life and co-create a heavenly world. And I cannot be on video right now because I have been crying. I watched Adolescence the other night and I completely binge watched it from start to finish. I could not stop watching it. I was gripped and I have just been processing everything that I've seen. And I felt really called to create a video about it, but processing it all has caused me to feel very emotional again. And I have been crying and I am a hot mess right now. And so I am just doing a voice recording for you. I hope that's okay. And I hope that you will stay and listen to what I have to say. And yeah, so, okay. I literally cried from start to finish. It was one of the most powerful things I have seen in a long time, and it has cracked me open in many ways. I feel really emotional even speaking about it now. It's really pulled on my heartstrings and I guess touched a nerve or 10 billion nerves within me. And it stirred a lot up for me. And it reminded me of a fear that I had before coming back to YouTube. So back in 2021 and 2020 and 2021, I came off social media. I was being blocked on Facebook and Instagram, all the new rules that were happening around that time, and censoring of a lot of kind of sacred sexuality teachers, female empowerment teachers, the algorithm picking up on words that you're not allowed to say. And a lot of my videos got demonetized at the time on YouTube. And then in 2021, my dad passed away and I just took a long break from social media and from YouTube. And that's why my channel then got demonetized. And when I decided to come back to YouTube, was it last year or the year before? I actually had a fear come up that almost stopped me. And that fear was INCEL culture and what happens to women who speak openly online, especially about the things I speak about, such as sexuality, women's pleasure, women's empowerment, the empowered masculine and feminine, all these things, health, well-being. And the reason I had this fear is because a while ago I watched a video of a woman, I'm not going to name her, who has quite a popular YouTube channel, and she was sharing how someone had left a strange link in the comments on her videos and she clicked it and she found herself on an INCEL website where men were discussing her and they were saying the most vile, horrific things like what they're going to do to her, involving the R word, and, you know, saying that they're going to find out where she lives and they're going to make her not exist anymore. And it was absolutely terrifying. And this woman, she genuinely feared for her life after seeing this. And honestly, I felt it in my body. And that story just haunted me and it scared me. And it made me question whether it was even safe for me to be online and to show up and speak about the things that I feel are really important and that matter to me, and my body of work, to share my body of work and to talk about trauma, sacred sexuality, tantra, female empowerment, you know, all these things, or anything that challenges misogyny. And at that time, I started researching, and what I found out chilled me. Like, it really did. Sorry. It's just that these incel forums, they don't always look dangerous on the surface. And in fact, many young boys find them when they're feeling lost and they're feeling rejected or lonely or shy or awkward, or that they're not good enough or that they don't fit in. And all of these feelings are very normal to feel during adolescence, right? They're normal things to feel when you are at that age. And these spaces that are online seem to at first offer comfort and a place of belonging. But over time, they start to feed this pain with poison, and they start blaming women and blaming society and turning rejection or low self-worth into absolute hatred. And the deeper these boys go, the more radical it becomes. And it starts with, I'm unlovable, but then it ends with women are evil and they deserve everything they get. They deserve violence. And it is almost like a grooming process, a digital grooming process, a radicalization process. And no one sees that it's happening. And this is why Adolescence just hit me so hard, because it showed exactly that. And it just brought all of that up for me. And yeah, this radicalization happens in bedrooms behind closed doors of these kids, whilst parents have no idea what their child is consuming online. And these boys who are victims of disconnection, maybe even emotional neglect to an extent, and a toxic digital culture, they can grow into young men who become perpetrators, abusers, and it goes beyond just the wounded feminine and masculine. It goes beyond just toxicity. It becomes real, and it's terrifying, because actually underneath all of this, these young boys, these young teenage boys, they're not always monsters. They're hurt, they're abandoned, and they're angry. But when we don't catch that early, that pain just turns dark and to darkness. And what's so heartbreaking and also disturbing is that these men, they want to be with women. It is heartbreaking, because they actually do want to be with women. They long for love. They long for intimacy. They long for connection. They long to feel desirable and to be loved. And they long for physical touch, and vulnerability and authenticity. But because they haven't had that, they start to resent and despise women, and they blame women, and they begin to believe that women owe them affection, that they owe them their bodies, they owe them sex, they owe them attention. And this entitlement becomes so aggressive. And any kind of entitlement like that is going to repel women, which only deepens their hatred. And it is a heartbreaking and vicious and disturbing cycle. And what's really sad about it is that there's just, in the minds of these young boys at this point, or these teenagers, or these young men, there's no space for friendship. There's no space for connection or mutual respect. It's just pain that has been twisted into a false sense of power. And in my time of researching, around this time when I was scared to come back online because of this, because of that video that I saw, I also looked into pickup artist content on YouTube. I actually went down, I got quite obsessed with it. And part of me could see how some of it appears to help shy, introverted young guys that are struggling with self-worth and all of that, like not confident, awkward young men. And they will turn to these coaches, these pickup artist coaches, these, male coaches for confidence and for social skills. And I could see that in some ways that could prevent a few of these young guys from falling into incel culture. But honestly, most of it also really disturbed me because, again, it's not about mutual respect and love and relationship building, and, shared values and integrity and vulnerability. It's not about care or true connection. A lot of it is about manipulation. It's about game, as they call it, game and scoring and conquest. It's not about building genuine, authentic relationships that can last. It's not about everlasting love. It's more about kind of hookup culture and plays into that. I mean, there are probably some coaches out there that do it differently, but the ones that I came across, because I was looking into pickup artists in particular, and many of these coaches are actually middle-aged men who are bragging about sleeping with multiple 20-year-old, 19 to 20-year-old young women or girls, like it's some kind of achievement or conquest. And it really brought up a lot for me seeing that. And I don't know if you know, probably not if you've only just come across me online, but I was a stripper in my 20s, and we had some pickup artists or some men's coaches, as they would say, who used to bring their clients into the club, some of them kind of on a semi-regular basis, so that they could get these young men used to talking to women and used to seeing women nude. And again, part of me thought, maybe this is helpful. Maybe it gives them confidence. Maybe it is helpful for them. But then there's this deeper part of me that just felt like, no, something is off here. And my journey with stripping and realizations that I came to, which is one of the reasons why I left stripping, is because strip clubs are exploitative by nature. And with regards to these guys that were coming in to help their clients and show their clients naked women and help them build their confidence talking to women, these men were paying to have women to get naked for them and paying to sit and talk to women. So it's not really based on real connection, but it's a performance and it's a fantasy. And strippers, like myself included at the time, we are creating a fantasy and pretending to care. It's not real, it's inauthentic. And we are made up in fake tan, full face of makeup, 6-inch heels, push-up bras. It's not a realistic representation of women in the real world. And I looked very different in the club than when I was outside of the club, And so I started kind of asking myself, is this really helping them, or is this perpetuating the idea that women are something you can buy, that you can control, where it's transactional, where confidence comes from dominance? And I guess I have mixed views on strip clubs, and that's a whole other video. But the reason I left is because I couldn't escape the feeling that morally something was not right for me personally. And I just felt like if I was accepting their money, then I was contributing to that and I was condoning it, and I was saying, yeah, that's okay, this is okay. And I actually didn't feel like it was. And that's just through my experience. I know it's different for different women and different for different people. But I had an insight into the different dynamics within men and women due to those experiences. And the whole environment was one of debauchery, of alcohol, drugs, dirty cash, and this dark underground energy and this seedy underworld. It's like the shadow realm. And I started asking, is this really where shy, introverted men lacking confidence and self-worth should be taught to interact with women? Or should they be taught to deeply respect us and find value in themselves beyond women, and to want to truly know us, not get one over on us, or have power over us? And that question still lingers. Anyway, this brings me back to adolescence, because adolescence doesn't just explore the story of one boy. It shows us how our culture of disconnection, shame, even emotional neglect and entitlement breeds pain. And Jamie's story is portrayed with such heartbreak and such realism. And he's a victim in so many ways, but one who becomes capable of causing immense harm. There was one thing I found really interesting about the series, and I'm sure this was a very thought about choice. And it's just the fact that the girl who was murdered, Katie, isn't given her own perspective in the series, and we don't see her family or the grief or what she was going through. We don't get an episode exploring her story. And I know her photo is present, and I discovered that her voice is singing that haunting final song at the end. That is the voice of the actress playing Katie. But I couldn't help but feel like it would have been even more powerful if we saw what her family went through and if we saw her side. And I feel like it could be really amazing if they did a second series going into that side of it. That would be absolutely brilliant. And I'm not criticizing it. I know it was done because it was a conscious choice. They wanted to focus on what goes into creating for a young teenage boy to end up killing a teenage girl. That's what it was about, and yeah, so I do get that. They probably wanted to shed light on why this happened, to explore the path that leads to such darkness. But I do still think we need to balance those stories with the ones we so often overlook, the stories of the victims, and the silence they leave behind, because both stories matter. The boy in pain and the girl who should still be alive. I have to say, all of this makes me think about my work that I do in the world about the masculine and feminine and how this comes into it. Because something that I teach and what I have witnessed time and time again, not only in my own life, but my clients and other women, is when a person is expressing from their wounded masculine, it's usually because their wounded feminine has been activated underneath. The wounded feminine is hurting underneath. So the wounded feminine is all about self-doubt, victimhood, flakiness, apathy, fear, low self-worth, and giving up. And sometimes the wounded feminine comes out as entitlement or emotional manipulation and control because she feels so deeply powerless inside. And that wounded feminine within a person tends to attract, or if you like, activate that person's inner wounded masculine, which is the inner narcissist, the dictator, the bully, the hustler who pushes and forces and makes things happen. And it becomes a vicious cycle. And so what you often see, and what I saw in Jamie in adolescence, is that deep down he is carrying so much wounded feminine energy. He feels worthless, not good enough, rejected, and like a victim of life and a victim of women. And that pain inside attracts his own inner wounded masculine of the bully, the voice that tells him he's ugly, pathetic, and useless, and that everything's hopeless. And that in turn makes his wounded feminine spiral even deeper into nihilism, entitlement, manipulation, despair. And then the wounded masculine fully activates and expresses outwards as rage, anger, force, intimidation, dominance. And this is where it becomes dangerous, because when someone feels utterly powerless inside, they may try to overpower others just to feel empowered, but it is a false sense of power. And they do it to feel in control. But that is a false sense of power. It's not true empowerment. It is toxic energy masking a deep internal wound. And true empowerment, true empowered masculine energy can only rise when the empowered feminine is present within, not the wounded feminine. And the empowered feminine is self-trusting, self-validated, it's rooted in worthiness. The empowered feminine within knows that what is meant for you will not pass you by, and the empowered feminine doesn't chase or try to control or collapse into paralysis. The empowered feminine within trusts the process and allows it, and is authentic and open and vulnerable in that way. And when that part of us is alive, it naturally calls forth and inspires the empowered masculine within. That's the part that is unwavering, protective, it's present, it's full of integrity, and it's directive. And it's the inner masculine that supports supports a person and enforces their boundaries and standards, and doesn't tolerate toxicity from your inner masculine, doesn't tolerate toxicity from yourself or from others, from outside of yourself. Without this union of the empowered feminine and masculine inside, people become wounded. And if that's not healed, the wounded becomes toxic. And if that's not shifted, then they may eventually become perpetrators and abusive. And this is what we're seeing with so many young men and with Jamie in Adolescence. And if we want to shift this on a wider scale, we need to help boys and men reclaim their wholeness and help them see their value outside of female validation, and help them connect to their emotions, their tenderness, their empathy without shame. The wounded feminine and wounded masculine inside a man will repel healthy love. It will push away the very connection he craves. If a man wants to attract a woman's interest, desire and devotion and openness, he has to do the inner work. He has to work with his wounded feminine and his wounded masculine. And he has to cultivate that empowered union within himself, because only then can he create true connection, not manipulation. And only then can he meet a woman in mutual respect and true intimacy. And only then will it lead to the true love he desires, where he is received fully. And I feel like it's really important to speak about misogyny, because it hasn't disappeared, and it's very much gone underground. It's hiding in forums, it's hiding in self-help channels, and it's hiding in our schools and in our homes behind silence. But these boys, these angry, entitled young men, like I said, many of them are victims too of disconnection and of systems that failed them, and of an inner feminine that was never seen or heard or cared for, and therefore an inner masculine that turns against itself and others. And if we don't offer them something different, if we don't see them, their pain can turn into destruction for themselves and for others. Adolescence just reminded me that it's about what happens when no one truly sees us and when no one teaches us how to be whole. And I really recommend watching it. It is difficult to watch. It is very moving. It's triggering. Yeah, let me know if you've seen it and what your thoughts are. Let me know if it moved you. Did it open your heart? I feel like it's really important to have these conversations, and I think it's done an incredible job at raising awareness. And I feel like this really matters for our boys, our girls, for the future generations, and for all of us. And so, yeah, let me know your thoughts about that. I hope that made sense. I'm going to go now. I'm wishing you an amazing day. And as always, remember to keep it juicy. Bye.